InfoPath versus PowerApps. So a little bit about me for you guys that might not know me already. My name is Nakia Carter. I'm a Microsoft strategist, solutions developer, and a trainer. I'm director also of training and collaboration for a company called C3 Integrated Solutions out of Arlington, Virginia. My specialties are SharePoint, Office 365, and any related tech. So that's why I was doing a session on Power BI, even though that is not my focus. But you got to know everything in the whole sphere, right? At least a little bit of everything. So that's where I am. You can see a lot of my street cred on this slide, including some of the things that I have done and some of the things that I am doing. Like I'm about to write another book, but I already have a book out right now and a few video courses as well. C3, we do managed services, networking, but we also, of course, do the SharePoint and the training and stuff because that's what they brought me on for. So before we begin, a lot of this stuff you've already seen. You know about the housekeeping stuff. Have you guys taken any selfies? No? Grab one of the orange shirt guys and take a selfie with them. I'm not sure if there's going to be a prize involved, but there might be a prize involved. So if nobody else has taken a selfie, because I haven't seen any, you might be the one to get the prize because you were the only one to do it. Everybody knows all the Wi-Fi information, but it's also over here on the board just in case you forgot or you had to reboot or something like that and you get kicked out, okay? Have you guys seen the sponsors? Been saying hi? Getting your bingo card signed? Finding out what they do? Yes, please do that because they pay for events like this. If they didn't, you'd be paying money, okay? A lot of money to go to a conference like this. Afterwards, we'll have a share pint. Now, I normally attend all the share pints, but today's my daughter's birthday, well, one of them, so I'm going home after the end of this conference. So if you really want to talk to me, I'll throw up all my contact information. But you can also try to get me before I leave today if you like, or hit me on Twitter, okay? Which I'll show you that in a minute. Don't forget about your local user groups and other community events and conferences. So I don't know if you know about the Baltimore user group. I run the SharePoint user group at DC. There's the federal SharePoint user group and Women in SharePoint and the SharePoint.net special interest group. They're all on Meetup. Well, Baltimore might not be on Meetup, but if you know who Shadid is, you can go ask him or you can come ask me, and I'll get you connected with that if you're in the Baltimore area. Flow and PowerApps. PowerApps just started. The first meeting was Wednesday, and we got to see Audrey Gordon. For those of you that know about Audrey, she is like the Microsoft PowerApps queen. So we got to see her on site. She flew from Seattle to kick us off, so that was awesome. That's in Arlington. This one's in Baltimore. This one's in Arlington. This one, I think they're still in Chevy Chase, I believe, but I have to ask Sweetie. They've been moving around, but they're on Meetup too, so you can find their location. Melly's here, Melissa Hubbard. She's doing a session right now on Teams. Again, you can ask me, or if you know her, go ask her. I forgot where. I think it's somewhere in DC that they're meeting. I don't know where the .NET Special Interest Group is meeting, but they're the ones that run this conference, the SharePoint Saturday conference. So ask any of the yellow orange shirts. And the PowerApps one is in Arlington. So PowerApps is at WeWorks in Arlington, and we moved to another work. Spaces. We moved to Spaces in Arlington. You also want to make sure that you check out the different events. Of course, all you know about SPS events, right? Because you're all here. Somehow you kind of figure that part out. SharePoint Fest, Collab 365 community is another one that you should be aware of. In the Microsoft Tech community, of course. And I'm sure there's a bunch more, but these are the ones, my go-tos. Okay? Yes. It's like SharePoint Saturday, except for bigger and you pay money.
Yeah, is it a national event or is it local?
There's local events. So I think the next one is Chicago, and then DC is coming up. Do you know when the DC one is coming?
January, past in the spring.
Did we already pass it?
It's using a spring.
I don't know, I always get all of them things confused. Okay, all right.
I gotta get company approval.
Oh, okay.
It costs $2,500.
Yeah, it does. Oh, and I forgot to put Ignite up here too. I forgot to put that, but that's even more money. But that's a well worth it conference as well. These are the free or low pay type events, the ones that'll be more local too. Also, I'm trying to bring awareness to this. A lot of people don't know about being able to vote for stuff, features and functions and everything in Microsoft that you might say, you know what, this is dumb. Why do you have this? I wish you never invented it. Or why the heck did you change that? You can submit feedback or go and look for other people's feedback and then vote it up, okay? So if you just do a search for Microsoft user voice for any technology under Microsoft that you want. You can get to the PowerApps one, you can go to SharePoint one, you can go to Office 365, Power BI, they have a user voice for all of it. I suggest that you go and search to see if somebody else posted whatever your feedback is. If they didn't, then post it yourself. If they did, then vote it up. Microsoft needs at least 50 votes on stuff before they look at it, okay? And when you submit feedback, remember you submit as much info as possible. Who, what, when, where, how, why, Lord, blah, you know what I'm talking about. All of those W's plus the H, okay? As much detail as possible, because if Microsoft doesn't understand what you're saying, they're just gonna throw it out, unless they can get a hold of you somehow, okay? So, vote. If anytime during this session you have any questions, let me know. I am a certified technical trainer. I do a lot of public speaking. So I'm okay with you interrupting me. It's not gonna mess me up too bad, okay? And I say too bad because I might trip a little bit, but I'll get right back on the horse, so don't worry about me, okay? Also, last thing, gotta give you a disclaimer. Notice the please don't hit me sign here, okay? It's for a reason. It's because I'm about to show you stuff in the cloud. The cloud is constantly changing and moving, and things could happen right as I'm trying to do it, okay? Or something could have happened before I started doing the session that was fine yesterday or earlier today, not so good now, okay? So if you catch me stumbling around, tripping, like where did they move the button that happened, please give me a moment. I will find it, or I'll figure it out, or if I have to get back to you, I will, okay? Also, you'll get the opportunity to get slides which will have the link to the video today or to the video in Baltimore. I can basically guarantee you that stuff is going to change when you go look at it next week. So excuse that too, or stuff might have already changed. So excuse that stuff too, okay? Yes?
Oh, that actually raises a point that's come up at my office. Is there a release list or newsletter? I mean, we were working with Modern Pages and we went from 2 views to 6 views, and that was great.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice if I hadn't been teaching somebody and there are 2 views. And
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of times that I'm teaching, I'm like, there's blah, 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 and this doesn't do that. And I'm, oh, it does do that. Sorry. In the admin center, in the Office 365 admin center, do you have access to that? No. What I would suggest the person that does have access to that do is they, okay.
I work for the government. They're so
Oh, okay. All right. So let's try to reverse this to the public domain. There is the Office 365 roadmap. So if you just do a search for Office 365 roadmap, there's one of those.
That's the government.
Well, there's one for GCC and one for GCC High. So, but they tend to give you the big rocks, not some of the smaller rocks. So sometimes those are just going to catch you by surprise. But that might help you.
Yeah.
Do a search for that with GCC if you're government, or if you have, if you're in a domain where you need to have ITAR regulations or NIST or DFARS, then you'll be in GCC High. So make sure you include that. I know there's a roadmap because my team keeps me apprised of it. but I don't know exactly what the URL is.
Yeah, I mean,
Something?
I'm not trying to stop things.
Yeah.
Just if a new feature's been pushed out, it'd be nice to know.
Yeah, it would be awesome if you had like access to the admin center, or if somebody that had access to the admin center pushed out the updates, because we get emails sometimes every day, which drives me crazy, or like at least once a week, that says all the stuff that's rolling out, some of the stuff that might have just rolled out, or in case you missed it type stuff. Sometimes it comes out, I only pay attention to certain things, but my team will just be like, draw attention to this certain thing happen for those of us that really care about that. So, sorry. No, I know that's a whole lot of words for like, okay, so I'm basically screwed. Yeah, thanks. Sorry, that's all I got. This presentation is going to help you on your journey. So every journey begins with the first step. I'm going to give you some of the first steps. So it's not going to just be the first step, period. I'm going to give you a few more steps beyond that, but we're not going through like real deep in depth of building like crazy stuff and all of, I'm going to show you some examples. We're going to look at InfoPath. We're going to look at PowerApps. We'll dig into both of them. We'll dig more into PowerApps than InfoPath, because there's going to be an assumption that we're leaving that. It's going. I love you, but we got to kind of move on type thing. So just be aware that this is more of an intro than it is 200 or 300 level, okay? Or 400 level. So let's get ready to rumble, because this is a fight that's going down right now. All right, so InfoPath. Heavyweight champion of the world, still, and in some people's eyes so far, okay? So what is it? It basically started off in 2003. It was released with Office Pro and Office Professional Enterprise version. Then there has been a release every year every release of Office. So 2003, 2007, 2010 and 2013, and that's where we stopped. Then Microsoft said, okay, InfoPath, kind of old, kind of decrepit. We don't want to keep on supporting it. So you got until 2026. Now, first it was 2023. Now it's 2026. Kind of gives you an idea that Microsoft isn't going to just give it the hatchet like they did with Access a little while ago. Anybody remember what happened with Access? They were just like, Access is gone. Bam. Everybody was like, no. And then they were like, okay, we'll give it back to you for a little bit. But enough people screamed. But anyway, with InfoPath, it's so many InfoPath forms in government and state agencies and commercial and enterprise level companies. They cannot just cut it off without a path. Okay? So I think the reason why they moved the date out a little bit, because they don't have the path yet for you to be able to migrate easily from InfoPath to PowerApps. Also, they're still working on feature parity. So there's a lot of features that are there, but not everything's there. They know they have to get them one-to-one, and PowerApps be more. It's going to be more. It's already more than InfoPath in some ways. So don't worry that they cut it off. You could still use InfoPath unless you're in GCC High. Big old wall that I ran into. It's like all the hooks are there. It says you can turn it on, and it's like, no, you can't connect. And Microsoft's answer was, it's not supported, so we're not going to roll it out to GCC High. And my reply was, but there's people that have forms that now are stuck on commercial that need to move to GCC High, and there's no PowerApps. And they're like, we're working on it. And I'm like, okay, you're about to work faster. So we'll see. Features. Rules, data validation, conditional formatting, ActiveX controls, customization of user roles, code behind, except for scratch that if you're in Office 365. You cannot do code behind. It will not let you deploy it. Okay.
This is still on InfoPath?
Yes, we are still on InfoPath, yes. How is it used? So InfoPath can be used standalone which means it can be by itself, like in a file share environment. A person can go to that form, fill it out, and when they hit submit, maybe it emails itself somewhere. Maybe it submits itself to a SharePoint list. Maybe it goes to Outlook and opens some tasks. I've done that before. So it can just sit by itself. It doesn't have to go into SharePoint. But then it can also connect to all these other things and more stuff. Okay, it can connect to a lot of different stuff. Now, a lot of this stuff is not very easy to connect to, but it can do it. Just not the easy button. Okay. So how's it used in SharePoint? Pretty forms, of course. Most people are like, SharePoint forms, they don't do anything. You can't make, forms have columns next to each other of fields. You can't like have the logo on the top, and even though there is a way to do that, but it's kind of convoluted. They're not very customizable. They're not very pretty. So InfoPath a lot of times would just deploy it to make the form look better. More functional, of course, because you can add in a bunch of stuff. You can have things merge from different places, different data connections, bringing in data from different places and pushing data out to different places. You can have workflow in it or around it. I actually build all of my workflows in InfoPath. I don't use Designer unless I really have to. Like if there's a permission change, InfoPath can't do permission changes. But it can do notifications via email. You could use the rules and conditional formatting to do your status updates and moving from each stage in the workflow, moving back and forward. It can get a little complicated, but I've done some really complicated ones because the email is fast. SharePoint Designer email, you could sometimes be waiting for 15 minutes for an email to come through for whatever reason. Dashboards, reports, content types. This was one of my favorite things. To be able to create a content type of a certain thing, like say you're working in an enterprise level company and they got thousands upon thousands of employees. And of course, they're breaking it down into different departments. Now, everybody has a leave request form, right? But everybody's leave request form, some are on paper, some are electronic, some look this way, that way, and the other way, right? You could take that sort of thing and congest it into something that everybody could use. And then you publish it to the top of the SharePoint site collection, or if you wanted it to be used across site collection, you could publish it to the content type hub and then deploy that to every one of those departments in maybe their, not really their HR site, but maybe their employee resources center for their department. And then every time you make a change to it, just like a content type, it deploys everywhere. So you could do that with InfoPath. It's one of the things I love about it. I'm sorry, I'm getting a tear.
Not so much.
Huh?
Digital signatures, not so much.
Oh yeah, I kind of glossed over that. Yeah, you can do digital signatures, but they are kind of cruddy and crappy.
Brittle is putting it nicely.
Minimalistic. Let's use a nicer word. They're minimalistic. So I tend to not even try to even do digital signatures. I use the SharePoint's innate created by and modified by and version history to do digital signatures. Yes?
But what if you're like trying to make it a form? And you need to actually get the digital signature.
Like with somebody signing with a finger or like somebody typing and it looks like cursive?
Yeah, you can, like from a PDF, basically, that kind of digital signature, or it collects that information.
Yeah, then I would just use a PDF. I mean, you can do it, but it's really hard to make them, and I would just, like he's saying, that they're ugly, they don't work exactly right, and they're very hard to initiate. Now, a lot of times I argue, why do you really need a signed digital signature? There's government agencies, well, there's lots of government agencies that let you just check a box as your digital signature. Because on the back end, if you're in SharePoint, it's already capturing who you are because you're the one that signed in. And if you're the one that signed in, but somebody else is using your sign in, then there's laws in place to, chop their legs off So
But what if it's like not all access to the same network or system, you know, same authentication? I don't know. Different question for different time.
okay, well, we can talk about that afterwards. Maybe I don't quite understand what your question is there.
Okay.
But like I was saying, a lot of agencies, even those that require clearances, are just letting you check boxes or just type where it looks like it's your signature because it's in cursive, but it's not really you signing anything. So I don't see it as that big of a deal, and a lot of agencies are starting to see it as not that big of a deal. This is the digital age, you know, you kind of gotta let it go. But you can also put a PDF in there somehow, or you can use like e-sign, what the heck is that called? E-signature. There's a couple of different products. There's also e-sign something. I always forget their last part of their name, but they work directly into SharePoint. There's another one that's in the DocuSign that works directly in SharePoint too. So if you really, really need something that they can do a wet signature and digitally, then I would suggest doing a third party. I'm telling you, it's going to be a pain. Don't do it. If you like your life and you have friends, family, unless you have nothing else better to do. The form types in SharePoint. There are two different types. So there's the list form that's connected directly to the SharePoint list. It basically is the SharePoint list form. You're just customizing it. So it's no way for you to like pull it out and then put it somewhere else. You have to like copy the whole list and put the whole list somewhere else because it's that connected to the list. And because of that, it's not as feature rich as the form library forms, which is normally what my go-to would be. Because normally people are like, oh, I just need a simple form that does X, Y, Z. And you do a simple form that does X, Y, Z. And then they're like, oh, and now I need these whiz bang thing. And you're like, seriously? Now I got to build the whole thing over again. So a lot of times they're like, I just need some, yeah. I'm just going to build it in the most sophisticated one. That way, when you change your mind later, I'm not the one paying the price. Okay. It has more functionality than the SharePoint list form. So now PowerApps, the up and comer, yes.
So haven't we got a solution for document library?
No. Yep, gonna talk about that. Yep. So PowerApps is the up and comer. Introduced 2015, public preview 2016, generally available later in 2016. And now it's just like this ever-evolving beast that just is like getting bigger and bigger and bigger. In a good way. And it's not one of those bad ones that you just would wish would go away. It's in a good way. But sometimes you're just like, you guys really need to do the InfoPath stuff. I need all of that stuff. Stop making it all fancy. I need the stuff that I needed before. They're getting there though. Okay, so just like InfoPath in a way, except for ActiveX controls, except for, oh, that's not spelled right. Repeaters. That's supposed to say repeaters, not repeaters. Yeah. So, whoops, I will correct that. XPath expressions and functions. Now, they're like Excel expressions and functions. Not XPath though. Different syntax. Blah, 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 blah. Now I say code behind kind of lightly here. It's code in each of the fields, not really code behind the form. So I actually should reword that too. Customize user roles, not so much yet. Okay. As far as this, what does it do? Everything, content types. According to Audrey, and I didn't get a chance to talk to her about it because she was like, it could do that. And I'm like, can it? And she was going to tell me how. I think it has something to do with the export. But then I was also thinking about how, and we'll look at how we can make a Canvas app. You could create a Canvas app or a mobile app. And then you can use the modern page web part to put it on any pages anywhere. So, kinda? like
What
it.
What about the form, the template that you create for content types? You can do a template. Is that how maybe it is connected to content types?
You can do a template for content types for PowerApps?
No, for forms.
Well, that's what I mean for PowerApps. We're in
Yeah.
PowerApps now.
I'm wondering. if
Yeah, I
that's-
don't know. That was the unanswered question. Now, I think that's where she was going. I think she was going to the export, because you supposedly can export your PowerApps, although I personally haven't gotten it to work. It kind of crashed, burned, and died on me. The other thing is, if you make a Canvas app or a mobile app, you can use the modern web part to pull it to any page, but then it's not separated like a content type. If you deploy a content type to multiple places, the data stays, separated out. So not exactly. I need to get some more clarification from her, but I didn't get a chance to finish the talk with her. So we're gonna say for that for right now, okay? Now, again, if I'm wrong, please don't shoot me later, okay? It's on tape. Hopefully I'll have the evidence that I did say all of this disclaimer stuff, so you guys don't try to kill me later. Okay. PowerApps, the options for SharePoint. You can open it in a SharePoint list, so you can customize your SharePoint list forms, just like you can do with InfoPath, but not libraries. So libraries are a no. You can't embed them in the page, and you can't move them between the site and the environment. They are stuck to the list that they're on, and that's what they're stuck to. Now notice this says SharePoint customized. I'm talking about the SharePoint customization of a list, okay? Now down here, I'm talking about standalone apps, which are your mobile app and your Canvas app, okay? Those are different. They appear in the PowerApps gallery and in your mobile. You can connect them to your lists and libraries. You can embed them in a SharePoint page, and then you can use them anywhere. Okay, yes?
With regard to document sets, they're basically libraries, I guess.
Yes.
So they wouldn't apply to this.
No. Now, technically, you could use a Canvas app or a mobile app and connect it to that library. I don't know why, in a way. I guess if you were trying to fill out certain things online, but that seems like a lot of work. On your phone, that seems like a lot of work. But on your tablet, maybe not so much. Yes.
When you say use anywhere, you mean like you could create this Power App and then just drop it on some garden variety ASPX page that is not necessarily connected to SharePoint at all?
Well, we're talking about in SharePoint. Use anywhere in SharePoint.
Okay.
Also, I probably should preface this part too. Use on a mobile phone that has PowerApps or a tablet or something that has the PowerApps app on it, and then you can just use it from anywhere. But I'm talking about in SharePoint. You can use it anywhere in SharePoint. Yes.
You said you can embed in a page.
Not the list one, but you can embed the Canvas or the mobile app in a page. Microsoft Forms?
No, just when you're in the SharePoint site, add a web part, drop that. Well, InfoPath could do it. Drop that form in.
Yeah, no, not unless it's Canvas or mobile. If you make it a Canvas app or a mobile app, then you can use the modern SharePoint page and the modern app, Power App web part, and then you can do it. If not, if it's connected to a list, nope.
I think that's the key with it, modern.
Yeah.
Until in 2013. Okay.
Yeah, and you don't have those modern pages. I'm sorry. Life, yeah. Every time I get into 2013, I'm like, oh, we could do modern page. And I'm like, oh, right, we're on prem. Life sucks for you right now. Sorry. Because they always want that whiz bang. Like, oh, we could make it pretty and it's not so hard. I'm like, no, you kind of got the same stuff. Sorry. All right, so demo time. Now, I'm going to leave this link here just in case this one blows up or we don't get to as much as I got to in this session. So you'll have hopefully both or at least the one, okay? When I post the slides, I will post the slides on Twitter. And if you know my email address or you come find me or you tweet at me, I will send it to you directly if that's what you need, okay? All right, demo time. Somebody say something?
Yeah.
Oh, what? Oh, what? Go back. Go back to this. Oh.
That's you? No, oh.
Yeah, that's a Q. Capital Q. So T6, capital Q, well, that's capital T. 810, capital O, M, W, K, capital, oh crap. Is that an I or an L? Huh?
It's L.
It's an L, okay. Capital Y. I always have trouble when it's like an I or an L because they both look the same. Lowercase L and capital I both look the same. All right?
Got it.
All right. All right. So first thing, let's look at InfoPath. All right. I already have InfoPath. Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, yay, I still love you, InfoPath, but oh God. PowerApps is starting to become my love.
It's an L.
Huh?
I just tested it. It's an L.
It's an L. Okay. Cool. PowerApps is starting to get there, but I guess I will always love InfoPath. When you open up InfoPath, right now I'm looking at 2013. So if you got an older version, it might look a little bit different, especially color-wise, but for the most part, this has not changed since. It has not changed. It's just always been the same. You have your SharePoint list, your popular template for a SharePoint list, which is going to make you connect to a list first. It's not going to like give you a template where you just start messing around with the canvas and then connect it. You got to connect first because it's got to grab your stuff in order, whatever your columns are and everything, in order for you to start messing with it because it is that connected to the list. Okay. Form library forms, they are a separate thing. They come out like a document. Well, I'll show you that in a minute. Then there's some other stuff that you may or may not have played with. I've played with a lot of this stuff, but we're going to stick with the SharePoint, okay? You choose whichever one, and then you choose design form. Like for the SharePoint list, though, I don't go this way. Now, some people go that way. For me, oops, got too much stuff open. Here's an InfoPath library. I go this way. I go from the list and push it to InfoPath instead of already having a list and then having InfoPath go grab it and pull it back in. Just the way I do it. There's no real rhyme or reason to why I'm doing it that way. It's just the way I do it. Okay, so I build the list first, and then in order for me to use InfoPath to get to the ribbon, because if you notice up here, oh, I should use my mouse a little bit. Up here, you don't see any ribbons, right? You guys know in order to open up InfoPath from your list, you have to have the ribbon, right? Some are shaken, some are like, I don't know. I didn't know that. So you have to return to Classic SharePoint. This little Classic SharePoint link down here. You click on that, whoops. There you go. And it returns you back to Classic SharePoint. And now I got the tabs up at the top with my ribbons that are associated with my customize and InfoPath. So this is the way I do it. I create my list first, then I go to this button and click on it. And it's going to say, do you want to switch? Because I'm using Edge. And then it's going to pop up, hopefully. Now I'm going to tell you a little something about if you're using MFA. I have MFA on all of my accounts for the most part. Does everybody know what MFA is? Multi-factor authentication. Do you know what that is when I said that? Okay. So when I sign into one of my accounts, it normally sends my phone a message Or sometimes I got to take a code and put it into the thing so it'll say, okay, you're authenticated. More than just my password. I found out quite rudely the other day when I was trying to get into InfoPath that if you already have, don't you know how sometimes the screen pops up and it says, sign in with these accounts that you had been in before? Well, maybe just one account. Me, I'm a partner, I work for a partner company. I got a gazillion accounts that I'm signing in. Oh, so you got 4? So you know you have probably like 4 up there. Some of you may only have 1. Even if you only have 1 that says, you can click on me and I'll just sign you directly in and there's no problem. You don't have to re-put in your password. Don't believe it if you're doing MFA. The reason why is because MFA won't trigger. It'll just keep saying, oh, I'm sorry, something's wrong with your account. Please try again later. And you'll try again later, and you'll try again later, and you'll try again later, and then you'll be ripping your hair out because you'll be like, what the heck? It took me a minute before I figured out what was going on. So if you get that sign-in screen, don't click on use one of my accounts that I already signed into. Click on let me sign in with a new account. Even if that account is already up there, sign in again. It's a pain in the butt, but that's the only way MFA will trigger. Okay? So hopefully it's not about to give me a problem because I've been talking smack about it. Let me get my password real quick. It should have just went, but oh well. Be my password. Is it that one? Yes, it is. Put in my password. Crap, there it is. No, wait a minute. I had to do something else with I had to do something else with InfoPath. That's with PowerApps. With PowerApps, it'll say authenticate. Have you ever seen when it comes up with that authenticate button and you keep on clicking it? Then it has all your choices for whatever accounts that you're signed into. InfoPath, it was something else. I wrote a blog on it. I don't want to go back and read the blog right now in front of you guys because now I can't remember what the heck I did to get around that. But note that that is what would, it would open up the form inside of InfoPath. And the designer, which I can't get to open right now because I can't remember what the heck I had to do. If you guys, I think I put a link to that blog in the end of my slides so that you can get to it, so that if you have that same issue, you can get around it. All right, just realize it would open up an InfoPath, then I would be able to do all types of stuff to it, okay? Now, for your form, library form, if I were to open that, what I'd do is I'd start from InfoPath instead of starting from the form library. The reason why is because InfoPath is basically, when it's a form library form, it's just a document, but it's connected in a way where you can push the columns or the fields that are showing up in your InfoPath form as columns in the document library, which has to be a form library. So if you create the library first, it has to be a form library, not a document library, unless you're going to use content types, and then you can do what you want. That's all you got to do is add the content type in. Okay. So if I click on the button here, because it's not a list, it just says, okay, you could just go ahead and just start developing whatever you want to do. Okay. I already have one that I created, so let me just go to that instead of this one. In your list form, you can't create repeating tables or repeating anything. So in my library form, I have a repeating table, but in my list form, it's a really simple one where I don't have a repeating anything. If I click on that new, it's going to open up and it's just going to be fields. Now notice I put a logo on there, I changed colors, I made stuff bigger so people could see it. I could have columns side by side with the fields and everything. I could do a whole bunch of designs type stuff to the SharePoint form. For your library form, like I said, it has more controls. Where is my mouse? driving me a little bit crazy. All right. It has all of the things that you're kind of used to when it comes to making fonts look pretty and adding logos and all of that stuff on the home right there. Then I have my controls here. In my list and my library, I have all the controls until I get here. This section is not there when I'm in a list form. Okay. So again, that's another reason why I don't listen to what they're talking about in simple form. I just go straight to the form library form. That way I'm not taken by surprise and I can automatically just do what I want within InfoPath's reasoning to my form later. There is a different connection though with the form library form as opposed to the list, because the list form is connect directly to the SharePoint list. I have to publish this thing. For a form library form, I have to publish it. For the list form, it's already connected to the list, so I don't have to do any publishing. The first time you go through publishing, it's a pain in the butt. You got to go through like several screens of answering all these questions. You can get InfoPath to actually create the form library for you, and that's what I normally do. I also make sure it's a browser form, not a non-browser form, because if it is, then they need InfoPath on their computers, at least filler, in order to open it. If they have a browser form, it just opens up in SharePoint. Then afterwards, all I have to do is click this quick publish button after I've gone through all my steps and said which columns or fields I want to make columns inside of my list. I have this quick publish button, which is a lifesaver for those of you who have anybody been in InfoPath for a while? Did you work at 2007, 2010? Did you work at 2007, 2010? Do you know what I'm about to say about how this quick publish button saves your life? The columns. Remember any issues? Oh, she's laughing. She knows what I'm talking about. You laugh now, right? Before you were kind of crying, because I know I was crying. What InfoPath would do is if you would step through those steps again, but you didn't reconnect your columns to the previous column that it was connected to, it would recreate those columns all over again. So then you had two sets of the same columns. You had data from your previous publish, and then you have data on here from another publish, and the two shall not meet. So then, of course, you have to rebuild the whole stupid thing all over again. And I'm saying that with angst because I still feel it. Okay? But when we got into 2010, I'm sorry, I was thinking about 2007, not 2010. 2010, the quick publish button came. You walked through the steps the first time, and unless you had to make any changes, you just clicked the quick publish button. Everything was golden. But that's enough about InfoPath, okay? I have two recorded sessions about introduction to InfoPath and introduction to InfoPath workflow. It tells how I create workflow in InfoPath. If you're still doing that stuff and you need some guidance on that, I can give you the URLs for that. Or actually, I'll put them in the slides too, okay? So that way, if you need to refer to that because you're still working in that world, have at it, all right?
You all still on that same YouTube channel?
Oh no, that one's in Colab 365.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my other, are you sneaking around in my other YouTube channel? I have an unlisted YouTube channel, so some people can get in because they got in through other videos, so then they can see everything else. I don't have it as private. It's not like I'm hiding things from you guys. It's just I don't have it as public because sometimes I'm going to record the same things over and over and over again, and I don't want to confuse people about. They're like, well, which one was it? If you got the link to a certain one, that was the one that was for you at that time. So that's why. Okay, so enough about InfoPath. We love you, but okay, bye. Moving on to PowerApps. Okay, let me close that. Before I move on to PowerApps, this one last thing. Here's the form library form. Remember how I said it's kind of like a document? See how it's kind of like it's a document right here? Got the little icon there, which means it's a document. It's an InfoPath document though. And I pushed one of the columns out, which was the project name, from the form to the library. So if I click on this thing, it'll still open up like it was part of the list, but it's really a document in a way. Okay. All right, so end of InfoPath. Now let's talk about PowerApps. So PowerApps, I have this list, right? I'm going to start with the SharePoint list. How much time do I have? Okay, I still got 25 minutes. Here's a SharePoint list that I did PowerApps at. Now, InfoPath, you have to be in Classic in order to get to the InfoPath button. PowerApps, it's modern. You have to be in the modern view. So right now I'm already in the modern, but say I wasn't. I was in Classic. When I click on New, whether I'm in Classic or Modern, if the form is deployed in InfoPath, it'll still show up in InfoPath. If it's deployed in PowerApps, it'll still show up in PowerApps. But in order to edit or create a new one, I have to be in the correct view, or I'm not going to be able to get to the button I need to get to. Okay. So if I was in Classic, I would need
So
to.
for an end user coming in, whichever platform.
It doesn't matter.
If you're coming in from Modern, but you built it with InfoPath, it'll still work.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yep. If I don't think well, I'll just go back here. This one wasn't in. Oh, I wasn't. This one is in Modern right here, and I had just clicked on the form and it opened up. So it doesn't matter. I could be in Classic and open up a Power App. From a user's perspective, doesn't matter. From my perspective as an editor or a dev, then it matters when I need to make changes to it. Okay. So I have to switch back to Modern, which means I need to exit the Classic experience. And then I have this little drop down right here where I have two choices. I have create an app and I have customize forms. Now sometimes people create an app and they think it's going to be the SharePoint customized list form. It's not. It's going to be that standalone Canvas or phone app. Okay? It always confuses me because it's the first button. You would think the first button would be to customize SharePoint, but whatever, because sometimes, stuff doesn't make sense, right? So if I wanted to customize the SharePoint form, I go to customize forms. So that's what I always think to myself when I'm about to do it. That helps me to not get confused. So I go to customize forms, and it will open up the Power App that I already created, hopefully, and not blow up on me because of my last presentation. It was like, yeah, we're going to start you over. And I was like, what? I don't know what I did, but I must have did something because it was just like, nope, you're going to rebuild the whole thing in front of everybody. So I already have a form that is the same as that list form. If you remember, the list form was just a little simple contact type thing. It just had the employee name, the phone number, and the email address. That's all I was doing. With the logo and the name, employee info. All of that stuff is basically the same. It looks a little bit different because I didn't do all the colors I did in InfoPath. But it's basically the same. In this form, I have a few things. I have my properties, I have my rules, and I have advanced. For every form that you work in, if it's a SharePoint form, the properties, rules, and advanced will all be tied to the form itself that's tied to SharePoint. All right, now people are like, what? What's that supposed to mean? If you look over here on the left-hand side, you notice it says Form Screen 1 and SharePoint Form. SharePoint Form is where all the magic happens. Form Screen 1 is this whole thing, these two labels, plus the form inside of it.
UI.
Right. It's the canvas part for the form, I would say. I think of it more of like the canvas. So if I go click on Form Screen 1, notice all that other property stuff that I was seeing kind of left. Now I just see fill, background image, and image position. which doesn't help me a whole lot when I want to get to stuff that's going on with the SharePoint form. So if I click back on the SharePoint form, now I got stuff like data and fields and layouts and, you know, stuff that makes sense for what I'm probably trying to do. You can do things like under the data, this thing is already connected to PowerApps lists because all I did was click on the customize form. So it's connected directly to the list, just like the other InfoPath list form was connected directly. So I don't have to put any connector in here, it's already connected. But I can open up that data and I can see all the columns, including ones that I probably don't care about. But if I wanted to add something else, like these are my 3 that I have added now, I could say maybe I want to add who created it and who modified it. I could just click the buttons next to the thing, and I clicked on the wrong thing, obviously, because that's not what I asked for. I asked for modified by and created by. Now it is teeny, 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 so let me, where's the slider? Make that a bit larger. If you noticed down at the bottom, that popped in there. Created by popped in there and modified by popped in there. And I could do things like adjusting the widths. Like if I wanted to add more than one to a line or something like that, I could adjust the widths and try to like move things around with the card. But you know, it's not gonna, because I only did one. What I normally do though, to adjust them, because it's easier this way, I think, is I click on the whole form, I go to data, and then I say, I go to the data right there, not the other data. And then I say, snap certain columns, like 4 of them, maybe. Like if I wanted to get 4 of them side by side, but let's say 2. Now I got them 2 by 2, but if I wanted to move them around, I'd have to actually unsnap. Oh, hit the deck. Unsnap. When you snap them, that means they're going to stay that width, they're going to stay where they are, and it's going to stay where it is. If you unsnap them, then now you can move them around, you can adjust. So I could say, maybe I want the employee name to span the whole line. And then it will move down the other, crap. This thing is too big. I need to make it smaller now. Okay, there we go. I could adjust it the whole line, and then I could say, okay, now maybe I want email to go up here like that. You may run into a problem when you're trying to move these things around, and I found out it was because Anton told me, if you're not connected or jacked into your internet, jacked directly in using an Ethernet cable, and your Wi-Fi is slow, it slows down this whole thing. So then it's like, what are you telling me to do? You're moving so slowly, I don't, you know, and it doesn't comprehend what you're trying to do. You're moving fast, but your speed is just like, and then it will just ignore you. So if you start having problems with it moving around, that means your Wi-Fi connection might not be the quickest. You might want to Ethernet in it, and then you should have no problem after that. Okay. Now there are things here, just like in the other one, where you have the other InfoPath form. Whoops, crap. Where you have, well, let me choose one of these things. Where you have the ability to, I don't know why it's taken so, oh, because I didn't choose an actual label. Where you have the ability to change the font, size, bold, color, background, border, all of that stuff. You have the ability to insert things like new labels, new buttons. I prefer buttons a lot of times as opposed to letting people use that save button, but we'll talk about that in a minute. There's other things here like controls. Now notice there are no repeaters here. Not yet. It's another thing I'm like, Audrey, we need repeaters like yesterday. Because I don't want to create, I mean, she's like, you could create your own. No, I don't have that kind of time. So, and, you know, I'm sure there's stuff out there to teach me how to do it, but I don't have that kind of time. I got to keep it moving. You know, I got 8 projects at one time most of the time. So you have things like that. You have where am I going? I am going to media. Under media, you have image, you have camera. Image is how I got the logo up there, and then I could size it the way I needed it to be. And I added it inside of not the SharePoint form, I added it inside of the bigger canvas, the form screen one. It won't go into the SharePoint form. Trust me, I tried, okay? It's not gonna do it. You gotta put it inside of the regular forms canvas. You got image, you got camera, you got barcode, all that goodness that you guys might have, some of you guys might have been in Brandon's session a little bit earlier, and he was talking about how because PowerApps and the Power Platform is all connected to stuff that your phone can do and other things like that. So you got things like being able to connect to your camera or barcode scanner or doing audio and video or having a microphone so people can, I don't know, maybe record something, you know, that they need to push up to. Like maybe they're doing weather analysis or something like that in a specific region, and they need to record what their findings are and let that get pushed as an audio file to SharePoint. You can do stuff like that, which, you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm like, all of this stuff is cool and all, but I still need my InfoPath stuff to work because they're making all this cool stuff, but they haven't slowed down to make all the InfoPath stuff yet. Yes.
I noticed you have these things on there, data card 1, title card 1.
Oh yeah, we're getting there.
Can you do the equivalent of the multiple views in InfoPath?
Yes.
And can you secure those? We have an app right now where, depending on who the user is,
yeah. See, that's that user pro. That's that user roles thing. No, not yet.
Okay.
Yep, nope, not yet. Not that I know of. Not yet. And that's one of my things that I'm also going to be talking to Audrey about. Like, come on, we need it. We need more. Need more stuff. There's other things that you can do in here, like being able to create galleries. So in your mobile views, you can have, if you were in Brandon's session anyway, you'll see that you have like a view that looks like this. So you could create something like that, would be like a view all items view, not just viewing one item. But you can have stuff like that. You can have ones with flexible height, so when things start expanding, because people are typing more, it'll actually expand itself flexibly. You have like data tables and forms. Now the form part, this is what I'm going to show you when we do a canvas real quick. But let me get through some of these basics. Because the canvas in the mobile app, if you use a blank one, you got to do everything yourself, which can be a little eek, but sometimes it could be the best thing in your life if that's what you need to do. All right, these data cards, I didn't tell you about this in InfoPath, but there's a best practice that I talk about in a video that I'm going to put the intro to InfoPath video that I was telling you guys about. There's a best practice of naming your data cards. And naming your InfoPath fields a certain way so that you know what they are, and the person that picks it up later behind you, or even you a couple of months later when you can't remember what the heck you was doing, you'll remember a little bit better because you've named things in a way. It's a pain in the butt at first, but it's best practice. Best practices can be pains in butts because they are, but they're for a reason, okay? So it doesn't come back and bite you later. I'm going to kind of just glaze over this real quick. The rules, they have this rules section. Kind of like InfoPath in a way. It's got that experimental next to it. So you can kind of add a condition to say maybe if this field does something, somebody puts in a certain number in a field, then the actions that are defined are ones that you actually, it does like, you guys remember when you do macros in older Office, especially Access and Excel, you used to record it. So it will record your actions and then give you the code. That's the same thing this does. So kinda, but it can be a little clunky, and I don't necessarily all the way like it yet. Well, I like where they're going. Okay, they're gonna get there at some point. Advanced gives you things like being able to do things like add code to when the form was successfully submitted, or when it's reset, or when it fails, or doing something like that to one of these fields where you have some, hit the actual field itself, where you have some actions on change and on select, or some of the data stuff you could do, like setting the max length, the accessible label, some design stuff like formatting, the mode, or the, come on, dude. Now my thing is like, I'm not going to do anything because you're making fun of me and I don't like it. Changing like the colors and stuff like that. Now some of these things are a little bit easier to do if you do it under properties. Instead, there are some properties that do some of that where you can actually just click on stuff with colors instead of trying to figure out what the RGBA is. But I tend to have to do that sort of specific because people are like, it has to match my logo exactly, or we're gonna have a hissy fit. So I have to go, down to those layers of that. But if you don't, and you want to just click on colors and stuff, you could do that a little bit easier. I think I had a question back here. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's out of place. How is this related to forms? Is there an anonymous input aspect to PowerApps?
Anonymous input.
Like you can get a form, you can have anonymous input.
Oh, you mean in Microsoft Forms?
Right.
You can't do that in PowerApps yet. And the reason why is because PowerApps only works in SharePoint or through the PowerApps app. And both of those you have to be signed in. That is on their to-do list. So yeah, the team is looking at that. A lot of people have been hollering about that, and I'm one of them because I'm just like, dude, I want to put this on like a web page or something and collect data back in, and I can't. So they're looking at it. It's on the roadmap. But if you go to user voice and you find it, vote it up some more. So hopefully it'll put more of a fire under them. All right, let's hurry up and go to a Canvas form because I'm running out of time. All right, so I just went to web.powerapps.com, or you can go to create.powerapps.com, but it'll show you a slightly different screen than this one. I like this screen for starting off to show you guys stuff in the beginning. Or you can go to powerapps.com and do the sign in and then work your way backwards. It'll land you on this, I think, not on the create one. Okay. I like coming here to this web one because I get the home, I get the learn. So here's where you can get to different tutorials and things like that. You get apps, which I'll show you in a second. You get the create button, you get data. So if you wanted to go crazy with like connections and entities and gateways and stuff, because you can get real crazy with some of this stuff. Business logic, which means like flow. Pretty soon they might add actually, Logic Apps is its own other thing, but I'm kind of thinking it would kind of be cool to have maybe a connector there to Logic Apps, even though it would take you out of PowerApps because Logic Apps is its own apps, just at a way more complicated scale at times. The create button takes me to the page where I can see creating a Canvas app from blank, creating a model-driven app, but you'd have to read the difference between what those are, because there is a difference. Starting from certain data. Oh, I got to get this out the way because you guys can't see that. Starting from specific data, going through different trainings. They even have apps here that you can kind of backwards engineer or just use them as is. So say, for example, you needed a budget tracker. You like this budget tracker? Just use the budget tracker. You don't have to recreate the wheel. They already have it here. Or if you need to modify it, modify it. They don't care. It's here for you, okay? You can also backwards engineer stuff. So if you're like, this app is doing this thing and I need to do that in this other app, how the heck did that work here? Let me go grab whatever the code was for that. You can grab it out of the different fields or off the buttons or whatever it is, whatever it was that you were trying to get. Under apps, this is where any apps that you created will be, except for SharePoint apps. So if you created a SharePoint customized app, remember how I said it's connected to the SharePoint list and you cannot move it out anywhere or do anything special with it? It doesn't show up here. These two are a phone app and a Canvas app. Okay? That's why they're showing up here. Yep. Those standalone ones show up here. Not my PowerApps list that was the name of it. It's not there because it's connected to the list. Before I leave the list though, I need to show you guys one more thing before I forget, because I forgot this the last time. When you're in your SharePoint list, whether you connected PowerApps or InfoPath, come on gear, you can go to the settings for the list, and under, anybody ever been in the form settings before? Under the form settings, you have the ability to revert back to the default SharePoint list. I've had to do that because I've botched some InfoPath forms so bad that was the only thing I could do to get it back, was to revert back. You can also click the customize here for InfoPath instead of having to switch over to the classic, but it's easier from the other way, I think. You can also hit the modify PowerApps here. Now, I have tried to copy the list as a template, like you could do with InfoPath, and move it somewhere else. And the joke was on me because the PowerApp didn't go with it. I had to create the whole stupid thing all over again. So that's another gripe that I got on the list. Okay. And sometimes if you turn it off, you can flip it right back on if you didn't delete the PowerApp. But I have had experience where I flipped it off and then flipped it back on and the PowerApp is gone. Okay. So just be careful with that if you do that and you're using PowerApps. Using InfoPath, whatever. As long as you don't delete the InfoPath form, it'll just stay. That one's a little bit sturdier, I should say. Okay, so let's look at this employee info one that I made. The first thing I did was I went to the create, and I started from a blank canvas. The reason why I did that was because if you start from data, no matter what the data is, you can only do a mobile app, which is like, why? I want a Canvas app that is wide and, you know, so I can like stack stuff beside each other and they look good. But you can't do that. You can only do a phone app, and phone apps are, you know, only so wide. So I started off with the blank app, but I will skip over all of the details to this point. When you create a Canvas app or a blank, I'm sorry, I was calling it a Canvas app this whole time. I meant a tablet app. That's what I meant. A tablet app or a mobile app. The tablet app, you can adjust the size. Same thing with the SharePoint list customization. The mobile app, one set size because it's going on a mobile phone. That's the expectation. Although you can open it in the PowerApps app on anything. It'll just look like a phone in the middle of the screen. That's it. Okay. Now this Power App that hopefully, oh, wait a minute. You know what? I didn't do this right. I did not do the edit. I hit the play. Yes.
When you do that, mobile, I guess that's iPad.
Yeah, I mean, it works on all the phones okay. I mean, all the places okay that you have PowerApps app on. The problem comes in if you want to have multiple fields beside each other, it's too restrictive to do that.
If you design something into Canvas so that you can do multiple columns, and you open that in a mobile device, will it automatically rejigger? Or
I don't know. Possibly, but I think it would stay. I think it will stay the way you designed it in the mobile app, because it will give you that certain amount of space. And just because you put two fields beside each other, it's just gonna be like, okay, that's what you want. That's what you get. Unless you make it shorter, then maybe it'll go into one column. I mean, smaller. You reduce the width smaller. Other than that, I think it's just gonna stay the way you put it. All right. When you create a blank app, oh crap, I'm out of time. I'll just say this real quick. When you create a blank anything, the first thing you get is a screen that's blank. That's why when I first clicked it, it was like blank screen. And I was like, oh crap, I forgot to edit. That screen doesn't have anything on it, but you can add items from the insert tab, or you can connect to data. That means you have to create your own connection to connect to the data. So I did that, and I created my own view item screen, which is right here, and my own edit screen, which has an edit form in it that's pulling data from SharePoint, that same thing that we did earlier, the same list that we were looking at earlier, then simple employee contact lists. Now those new screens you can get from here. If you make a mobile app, it automatically comes with a list. It automatically comes with the edit, which isn't further down, or did I have to? I might have had to create that one off the forms, not off the new screen. Yeah, I had to create that off the new screen. It automatically comes with the list that shows you all of the items. So I had to create one of these, which doesn't come with a search box. So that's another gotcha. If you don't make the mobile one, you make the tablet one. It'll make it, but it's like no search box for you, which is weird. I had to create the other two forms by adding forms. Here we go. Edit and display. And then connect those to the connection that I created to the SharePoint list. I'm sorry I ran out of time, guys. I think I'm just going to delete this recording. No, I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to keep it, but the other recording that I have is going to talk way more into a lot of this stuff. I spent a lot more time on stuff I probably should have. Yeah, yep. So I'll keep both links in there. I'll just close out now because I don't want the next speaker to come and kill me. All right, so InfoPath. It's in the battle. It's like Mike Tyson, you know. It was the heavyweight champion of the world. It was powerful and lovable at times. Sometimes kind of scary. But its time is over. It had its day. You know, it's kind of, I mean, Mike Tyson could probably still knock anybody out, but probably not for as long a period of time. You probably wake up a little bit earlier. Just saying. Anybody watch wrestling? So you know who these guys are, right? This is the New Day. Okay, so this is like WWE wrestling, or something. You guys are like, what? You watch that crap? Yeah, because it's fun. So one of their sayings is, don't be sour, put your hands together for us and feel the power. So I said, don't be sour, put your hands together for PowerApps and feel the power. It's a new day. Because New Day, PowerApps is like New Day. It's modern, it's mobile, you know, it's part of the modernness. It's kind of 3 times the power, 3 times the fun, 3 times the colorfulness, because you can get way more creative with the design and it looks better on a mobile phone and everything. It can be a bit awkward sometimes because these guys can be a bit awkward, but still fun. But its day has come. It's its time. So it's a new day. If you guys need help, of course, make sure you go to PowerApps apps.microsoft.com. There's Learn and there's the community. But you can also reach out to me or to us at my company. And here is my Twitter handle, as well as some of my other things here in my company. If you guys want to link to me on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is Nakia T. Carter. If you literally linkedin.com/n/Nakia T. Carter, you'll find me, like the only one. So there's no confusion there. And I will connect right back to you if you send me a connection, okay? And thanks, guys. Sorry about not being able to get to all the PowerApps stuff. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to post it to my Twitter. Yeah, but if you need me, just grab me before the end of this conference because I'm not going to the SharePoint today. I normally do, but I'm not going to be there today.
You mentioned something about our recording.